Okay, I think that we are ready to get started. So hello and welcome to our latest webinar on the topic of making informative maps and white labeling the apps. My name is Antonio, I'm head of sales, and here with me I have Barbara, head of customer success.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Barbara.
Hello, Antonio.
What do you say that we get this show out in the road?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so let's move to our next slide.
For you.
Yeah, please do. So before we go into it, just a couple of technical information. As always, this webinar will be recorded and we will be releasing the recording in the upcoming days. It will be accessible on our blog page. And of course, if you would like to rewatch it or catch some certain segments of it, you can always access it, but of course, feel free to reach out to us as well regarding it. Also, same as always, you are welcome to fire away with your questions. You can write them in our chat, or you can send a direct Q&A panel. You have it in the Zoom panel, so you can write in your questions. We will address them in the end. For today, what we have planned out is to go over some tips and tricks for the data visualization, same for the setting of custom applications. So with that in mind, let's get started.
Let's go ahead and we'll just stop our video here so that you can focus better on the apps in question.
Not to be distracted by our faces. Okay, so unlike paper mapping, GIS provides really far richer and more flexible medium for portraying spatial data visualization. GIS allows us to interact with maps more easily and make more precise decisions and actions based on the representation of that spatial data. When visualizing the data, it's essential and probably the most important part to keep in mind the person who will be viewing that map. Even though you understand your map and what you're trying to present, the end user may have more difficulties understanding what you wanted to show. And for those reasons, we decided to share some of our best practices with you and advices when it comes to the data visualization, but as well into customizing the application. And we will walk you through available visualization options in GIS Cloud. Hopefully, you will find inspiration and some tips and tricks that make your maps even more intuitive and easy to use. So we prepared a couple of maps, and the idea for the first segment of actual data visualization is how to get from something like this to something like this. So let's go back to the version that we will be working on. So if you're a GIS Cloud user, you probably seen these before. You started to upload some of your data and you ended up with one point on a base map. And what we wanted to do for the first step is definitely to zoom in to our area of interest. You can do that by selecting the layer in the layer list and then clicking zoom to layer, or you can use more, let's say, manual setup of using this button to actually zoom in to the, let's say, area of your interest. Okay, once we have that set up, what we can do is go under the map properties and get that current view of under the advanced section. Here you can set up additional options, you can check them out, and let's save. What this does is when every time we open a map, it will now be zoomed into that specific area, as you can see. So pretty good so far, but is it? Can you even recognize what is currently showing up on a map? We can see that there are some roads, there are some traffic signals because we can read the layer list, and there are some city districts. But since the map is called traffic signal maintenance, I would expect to see upfront what traffic signals actually need to be maintained. So how do we accomplish that? You know that in GIS, the essential information that comes not with just this kind of map is the data that this map is holding. So let's start with the traffic signals layer, and let's see what kind of data we have. So since we are talking about some sort of maintenance work, the main focus here would definitely be the status field that we have. And we can then go to the layer properties. We double click on the layer. And first things that I would like to change is the layer name. So Barbara, can you assist me by giving this traffic signals operational status name? Oh, you already have it here. Okay, so what we are doing, we are now changing how this will look like in the layer list. We are not changing anything on the source itself. We are just, let's say, beautifying the things a little bit. And next we can go under the style section and start with, let's say, classification wizard. What we have here, we have two options to choose from. We can use distinct or continuous values. And what's the difference? The distinct values means that all of the attributes that have the same values will be classified into one category, where continuous values means that attributes will be classified into a defined range of classes that represent a set of values. So for what I need to do, I would like to categorize it based on distinct values. And I will select my field status here to categorize it by. The system automatically calculates the number of classes based on the values that you have in your data. So what we have immediately 3 classes available to us: defective, needs status check, and operational. So what first I would like to do is rearrange them. I will pull up the operational on top and defective at the bottom. Next, we can change the color scheme for it, because operational, I would like to have green, because green is always a good sign. And you can see under the style segment that you have multiple options to choose from, whether it is to choose from predefined classes of icons to choose from, or I don't know, you can choose any of them, change the color, change the size. You can also import your own custom icons, or you can simply use the circle with a color scheme that you would like to use for this setup. So let's use green. Let's change the size to 8, and let's keep it like that. Okay. Next, we repeat that for our next category. Let's use the orange. This is not that crucial. There are some repairs needed, but not that.
Yeah, here we actually don't know.
Yeah, we need to
going on.
check them out. Okay. So sometimes you can also use gray for checking something that is unknown. Let's use this one, change it to 8 as well. So you can see you can change the size, the border, fill and border color, also choose from circle or box. And let's say okay. And before I save it, I would just like to change this expression to something a little bit more pretty. And we do that by just switching to label, maybe use the capital here. Let's use need status check and go under the label, and yes, so everything works in copy pasting option. Let's just select it and paste it. You don't need to write everything from the get-go. Okay, so let's save it. You can see it's immediately changing the color scheme for you, and it's starting to look even clearer. So next, let's move on to the roads. Again, we will double click it. Of course, let's check out our data as well. So I have here highway field with multiple different categories or types of the road. So let's also change first the road's name, roads by type, maybe. Perfect. Oh, selected. Okay. And under the style, let's go to the classification wizard as well. What I expect here is what will happen. It will give me a large amount of different classes or categories because I do have a heavy amount of different roads here. And you can see it on a map as well. Maybe it's a little bit more than I need for this case because I do have some smaller roads that are not in need for this particular project. So with that in mind, we have our classes listed here, and I want to exclude some of them. And how do you do that? You simply go and X the ones that you don't need. It's removing them. That means that they will not be visible on a map. I will keep the motorway, and let's move more to our other classes. I will keep secondary as well. I will keep tertiary. And okay, but now what I have highway motorway and motorway link. It's just a way that the data was classified here, but we can actually group them into a single category. So let's just copy paste and give a space and write the operation or and paste it. We can remove this class and we can repeat those steps for all other classes as well. So or operation enables you to basically include multiple field values, different values, and they will be grouped into a single category. So
of course, this will depend on what kind of data you have. Here, our roads are not the primary data set that we want to show. We're trying to show the traffic signals, so we don't really need to have all of those classes here.
Exactly. So sorry, let's change the color scheme for it as well. Oh, you can see the colors changing immediately. So what we wanted to do here is to basically keep this category easy as possible. So let's see about the secondary. We will use some sort of, let's say, blue with a darker background. And let's use the final one, the pinkish way. Okay, let's save it. Let's see what's going on. Oh, much better. But you know, we set up the labels for the previous layer. If we don't set up labels for our roads, they will look like this. So let's change them as well. So we can use, I don't know, motorway primary. Okay. For this, let's use roads secondary. And the third one, roads. Perfect. So here we have it. Okay, so what we also can do, we can log the layers that you don't want them to pop out. And maybe a good thing to mention here is that what we can do also is we can set up the tooltips. So the tooltips will give you the opportunity when hovering over your map and contact to actually show certain attributes on top of the layer. They are not permanently locked, but you can actually see them. Start typing the highway. Okay, here it is. And let's save it. So when we now go over our roads, we will immediately see also what type of the road that is. Okay, and finally, we are left with the city districts. So let's open it up. Can you help me, Barbara? Local area boundaries, maybe?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So let's go to the style of this. So let's keep this one simple. This is just the boundary for our city. So let's just use the style color of, I don't know, a light grayish to border color black. Let's border it with 2 pixels, please, and let's dash it with 6. Okay. What we can also do is label this layer, meaning that we can add certain attribute field to include in our map. We will use the name for it, but as you can see, you can choose multiple attributes at the same time. We save it, we choose the placement of it. I will center it because of this is the polygon. I will simply switch the font color with the outline. You can, of course, see that you are having multiple options here in regards to the margins, placements, font sizes, and things like that. So if we save it up, you can see that now we have those labels appearing. What you can also do is set up the transparency. So let's make it a little bit more lighter. Okay.
Yeah, so we can see the boundaries still, but you can still see a bit of the base map. And this is especially useful if you maybe have like a satellite base map or something, maybe a custom one that you added as well, because of course you'll see everything that's underneath it.
Okay, so yeah, let's say we have our map set up. How much time did it took us? Like 10 minutes?
Something like that, yeah. And we were doing it pretty slowly and describing every step. And so that should be pretty quick for you as well.
Perfect. So I think that we are ready now to switch to branding our application, which will hold this great map for you guys.
Of course. So let me take over for that one. So now that you kind of have your map, you've set it up, you obviously, it's time for you to share it with someone. You're not going to keep it for yourself. This is information that you need to share. So that can be with the public or maybe your colleagues or your client or whoever it is. In this case, we'll make a public map just so you can later take a look at this portal that we create, and you can maybe look through the maps and through the data. So our first step would just be to make the map publicly available, which we've already done here. But that's okay. So when it comes to sharing, of course, this may have been a challenge before web maps, because you need to either go ahead and print this map, or maybe you were just sharing the raw files, which kind of defeats the purpose of setting up any kind of appearance here, because if you're just sharing raw data, they're just going to receive it in the same way that we started with our map. And of course, that's not very user-friendly, especially if you're sharing it with someone who's not used to working with GIS. You know, other people still need that information, but they haven't used GIS before, maybe. So with web maps, it's much easier now, of course. There's certainly a lot of benefit to then also having a custom user interface for sharing the map as well. You could always just, you know, send them this direct link over here. They would be able to see this map as long as they can access editor, but it's not really useful for anyone who maybe doesn't understand GIS. They certainly don't need all of the other tools and features that you have in editor. So you know, it of course makes sense to simplify this even further. And when we're talking about, you know, creating custom apps and branding applications, custom can be a very broad term itself. So this can be something as simple as putting your own logo on it and maybe changing the color to your branding. Or it can be something, you know, a bit more ambitious, maybe creating a fully custom dashboard with all of the kind of different information added to the map. So today, what we'll show you is how to make this map into a public-facing map portal that will display our map here, but also some more context and some more information. And the best way to do that is with a map portal, especially if you're, of course, working with public maps. But what we'll show you today can be used in private maps as well. So if you're working with private data, This is all something that you can have kind of behind a login screen as well. So just as Antonia showed you the kind of end goal for her map, I'm going to show you what the end goal for our map portal is. And you can see it over here. So we have a custom portal with a nice panel with some additional information. We have our map, of course, but we also have a couple of additional maps listed here. We have our own kind of custom branding with our logo, our colors. We have a couple of different filters set up. And we have, of course, this is the same panel that we saw before. And we can also share our map with others. But of course, this is just kind of the start, because you can then take this and add more information to it, add more tools to it. But today we'll just show you how easy it is to get started. So you could have something like this in 10 to 15 minutes, but you can then, of course, spend more time and making it fully custom. And you can also see we have here a custom color for our pop-up window as well. Okay, so to get started with creating these custom portals, we have to go back to the manager. And if you saw, we just switched over from the editor into the manager over here. And I showed you already this starting, this actually endpoint for our Roadworks portal, but we'll go ahead and actually start from scratch and create a map portal. And you can see here, you also have the option to create map editor and map viewer as custom applications. So you're not just limited to the public map portal. As we mentioned, editor and viewer as private applications can be edited as well. Okay, so we have our application here. Now, if I open it up, you'll see it's blank, so there's no information to it. We have to customize it further. But actually, let's get started. Okay, let's go ahead, and maybe the first thing that we can change is actually the name of the application and the portal logo itself. So let's call this a public Roadworks portal. Domain can also be changed, but we can leave it as it is for now. And here we can also change our logo. Usually, if you don't have it already uploaded, you can do it here, but we have it in our file manager already. And you can see the logo already here. So it's going to be the same one as this one. Apart from just some basic information about your application, you have a users tab here, which is in fact useful for custom editors and viewers, because you can then add users who have access. And you also have this advanced tab where part of the customization can be done. Now, what we'll show you today is how to work with the app builder. So you won't have to set up anything here, but just note, we'll come back to this place a bit later, and you'll see that some of this has changed, that some of the information has filled up automatically for us. Okay, let's give this a save and open it up again. And I'll leave this other one just here as a reference. Okay, so now it's already a bit different. We have our name, we have our logo, and let's get started with setting everything else up. So I did mention we'll be using a builder, and every custom application has a builder added. That's especially true for portal, and for editor and viewer, you just need to add a little piece of code, but you can get to it really easily. And what the builder allows us to do is to quite simply create a fully branded user interface without any need for any kind of coding or things like that. Okay, we're not going to save the password for this one. So you can see here on the left, it automatically gets opened, our app builder, and on the right is basically our end map portal, still blank, we still don't have any information set yet. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll just set a default map, because that's kind of the main thing that we want to use, traffic signal maintenance. And I'll just go ahead and I'll save this right away so that we can continue building on top of that, and so that we actually have a map here on the right that we can look at. Okay, great. So this is still okay. This is already a good start, but as you can see, if I just open it up in a new tab, pretty blank. We still just have the basic kind of interface. Nothing really much to tell us exactly what this portal is about, what we can find here, how we can use it, anything like that. So to add this other interactivity, to add more context and more information to our portal, we can use our app builder. Let's close this map one. You can choose to change things in the toolbar, which is essentially this bar over here. So maybe if you want to remove some of the things, you can do that here. Our top menu is essentially this ribbon at the top. So what we'll actually do right from the start is I'm going to go ahead and remove the login box, because this is going to be a public portal. There's not going to be a reason for anybody to log in. And I'll actually remove this search, because you can still search in our in the map itself. The other thing that we can do here is we can change our background color. So we're going to do that. And let me just save this so that you can see the changes being made. You also see that you have here a preview that you can use to see how the change would look like without actually saving it. Now, I do have this logout here because I'm still in the builder. This is just to log out of the builder. But if I just refresh it here, you'll see there's no login button, but we're already getting somewhere. Okay, so let's see what else we can add to our builder. So now that we've set up just the kind of basics with our branding, let's say it like that, we can add additional maps to it. Now, we've actually prepared a couple of maps beforehand, and I can show you them in the editor as well. So all maps are created in map editor. That's one thing to keep in mind. And the map portal is just to display this information to others. So we have a couple of different maps, for example, this pedestrian access map, the roadworks access, parking, bicycle infrastructure. So those are all maps that we created as sort of addition to the traffic signals one that we can then add to our portal. So let's do that. We can add this as an item to our menu, to the ribbon at the top. We can use this switch map option, and you can see you have here quite a few different tools and actions that you can add to the map itself. What we'll be focusing on today is the switch map, the panel, and also the share map, but you can of course add anything else that you want. This is something that you'll basically tailor to the end user and based on who needs access to the data that you're sharing. Okay, let's call this one roadworks access map. That's one. Let's add some more, still on switch map. And we said we want the pedestrian access.
The action name basically means typing in the name that you would like this to be listed by.
Okay. And let's also add our bicycle infrastructure. Okay, and what else do we have? We have roadworks, and let's also actually add one more link to our original map, so the one that we set as default. But if we want to go back to it once we've switched over to a map, we want to add that as well, because otherwise we just need to refresh the application, which is fine, but this is of course better. Maintenance, okay, add it. Great. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this now. And we'll see the links at the top. So now if I maybe select our pedestrian access. The map will open up. Our roadwork access will open up as well. Traffic signal maintenance. So that's our original one. And let's actually then go ahead and make this the first one. So we can kind of rearrange things as needed. Okay, so we have our maps, we have several different ones, but we still maybe don't know what the purpose of this portal is. So what we can do is we can go ahead and add a panel. Now, before we actually add a panel here, we have to create one. So we cannot select something that doesn't exist yet. So I'll switch over to the panel section and create a new panel. Let's go ahead. And I'll leave the name blank, but this is where you would type in the title for the panel. This is especially useful if you have several different ones. We'll just have 2 for today, so this one is okay to be left blank. We'll choose the width and the height, and let's say 450. So this is in pixels. We can make it open by default or not. And some advanced options here that you have is whether to include the close button, and you also can use CSS, and I'll show you that later. So we can just paste some text here if we want, and I'll do that first and show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you maybe what the better option here would be and what would maybe make more sense in terms of, actually sharing this information with others. Okay, so you can see that this is by default opened up, but it's just plain text. There's no kind of, there's no font changes. There's no spacing between the different sentences. It's really difficult to read. So what you can do is you can actually just copy HTML into this panel. Now, you don't have to be a developer, you don't have to know anything about HTML, because there are a lot of tools online that just let you copy your own already set up text, and it will just give you how it looks like in HTML, and you just copy that and that's it. So absolutely no changes necessary from you, no coding knowledge needed. You just copy and paste it from a tool, and that's it.
Love it.
Exactly. Now, if you do maybe are familiar with coding, or maybe you want to make this a bit more custom, you can also include custom CSS here. So for example, I can add like a background color. Let's see. I have somewhere the code actually.
It's just like a hex number, right?
It's a hex number. I have it already picked out so that I can copy and paste it. There you go. Background color. And that's it. Okay. Let's save this. Let's save everything here. And now we'll, when this refreshes, we'll see we have our panel over here. So we have this scroll bar, so maybe we would need to make it a bit larger or smaller. So of course you can work with the dimensions based on the data that you have, the information, the text that you have, and obviously you can see this looks much better than what we initially started with. But okay, so this one opens up as when we first log in, or rather open the portal. Let's go ahead and also add it as a button to the top, so that if you close it, you can always go back to it. So I'll just choose a panel, and it's this one because that's what it's called. I'll call this just more info. Okay. And the last thing that I want to do with the panels is to also provide some kind of filtering system. So it's always good to enable users to search through the data that you have on the map. It makes it much more accessible than just scrolling through the data grid or searching for a specific keyword, because you'll then find only one feature with that. But if you maybe want to show all of the operational traffic signals or all of the primary motorways, you can set up a filter. Now, of course, in this case, we also have it as specific classes, so you can turn them on and off. But maybe you also want to, maybe that you don't have it, you don't have the appearance set up based on what you also want to filter. So we can go ahead and do that. So again, we'll create a new panel. I'll call this one filters. Let's say 400 by 300, or maybe 300. That's fine. 400 by 450. Let's say it's closed by default, but we will put a close button here. And instead of the static text, we'll select a GIS Cloud filter. And we can go ahead and create a filter here. Now, with filters, it's just important to know that you need to first open up the map that you're filtering, which means that you can essentially repeat this action for other layers, for other maps in your portal as well. So for traffic signals, let's say I want to use a drop-down filter, and let's go with the status. And instead of just writing all of the values, I'll say auto fetch and multi-select. We won't go into too much detail because we can spend half an hour just going through each of these filters alone, because you can always go ahead to our guidelines manual page and take a look over there. And we also have a couple of additional videos that we've recorded on this topic that you can use as well. And of course, this will be recorded too, so that you can always kind of come back to this and see. Okay, and again, here I'll select auto fetch and multi-select. But just to give you a brief overview, these are the filters that you can use. They will be displayed in this panel that you created, and they will essentially determine what is visible on the map. So you'll get a better understanding once we actually create them and forward them to our portal. Okay, go ahead. And let's just save this. And I can actually reload this here as well. Okay, so we have our panel over here, but we're missing the button for the filters. So let's add that button as well. So for the panel, choose the filters. And you could maybe add one more panel that maybe explains how you can use the filters. You know, it just depends on what kind of information you have on the map and whether something like that is necessary. But of course, we would always encourage you to create a custom application that is just intuitive, so that, you know, users don't really need a guide to be able to use it.
That's really important, especially when we are talking about public portals, because we expect people not to be GIS savvy. They have some basic skills in navigating through, I don't know, Google Maps or things like that. So you always need to keep that kind of segment in mind as well, just who is viewing the map and how easy would it be for them to actually navigate it.
Exactly. And you can see now the filters that we've set up. I've just moved it here just so we have a full screen so that you can see how that works. And here our filters will show up. And let's say we only want to see our defective traffic signals that we need to fix. And you have the information right away visible. So even if you maybe turn off the roads, or maybe we can also make them a bit transparent so that they kind of pop up more. But it's a great tool for anyone who's using the portal to kind of search through the data. And you can see it took us maybe 15 minutes with kind of going back and forth to setting this up. You have all of the maps listed above, you have the filters, we have the panel. And you can, of course, as I mentioned, repeat this step with the filters for every map that you have. So each map that we have listed at the top has can have filters like these. And this is something that you, of course, tailor this experience based on who the audience is. You know, maybe it's just the public. You want to inform them of some activities in the community. maybe it's the kind of stakeholders, they require certain information, but they're not as familiar with GIS software, but this is pretty intuitive and easy to use for people who are not GIS experts. Or maybe you're sharing this with a client, you're sharing the work that you've done for them, you have them always informed on what's going on in the field, or maybe something like this, where this is your kind of operational visibility map. You're maybe monitoring the location of your field crews who are actually doing the monitoring on these traffic signals. And then you can, of course, have that information right away. Since this is directly connected to the map that you have in Map Editor, anything you change there is right away visible here, and you can then even connect this with our data collection.
Exactly.
So that, you know, if you maybe get a new traffic signal that is that needs some kind of maintaining, you have that information here right away. And maybe you have a person who's dedicated to, you know, just monitoring everything that's going on in your city. You can, they can see all of the information here right away. In essence, it's just more efficient because whoever's using this custom application can then only see the information and the tools that are specifically prepared for them. This is a very simple application because it's meant for the public, and you don't really want the public to be able to, you know, edit your data, change things, but you can kind of imagine that if this is maybe your private data, your private map, you could also then have options to, let's say, create new work orders based on what you see here. Maybe you can have an option to kind of mark down an area, create a new feature, maybe that your client gives you information through that, you know, hey, please take a look at this area and see what needs to be done here and things like that. Two things that we haven't changed from the original map is just the color here, and also, if you recall, this drop down, but I can maybe create this in the background while we also take a look at our questions. So why don't you, if you maybe were waiting towards the end to ask any questions, why don't you go ahead and do that? So one thing that I did mention before is that we're going to go back here and just take a look at our map portal, and you can see some of the options have been added here automatically. Since we were working in the builder, it just kind of gets transferred here. But in our manual, you have a lot more options that are listed that you can add to your custom application. For example, if you want to make this logo point to your website, or you want any kind of additional information there as well. But also you'll see here, you have this app folder where you actually have the app JSON. And this is essentially your custom application. So if you are maybe inclined to do some coding, you can change this as well. So what I'll do now just quickly is to add the custom color for our pop-up, just to show you how quick it is. But of course, if you're not really up to that, just leave it as it is. That's perfectly fine.
Of course, any customization that is required on your apps, we can always help you get started. We always like to give a friendly hand to our customers to get them started as easy and fast as possible. But of course, during that kind of help, we try to teach them about all the options available so they can progress and continue with the customization on their own without depending on us, and basically set up the interfaces they need it to be.
Okay. And that should be set up right now. Maybe we just need a few seconds for it to refresh. But you've seen that, you know, this was really just a very simple one line added to the JSON that was automatically created. And of course, then 2 more lines added on top of that. And this is something that was actually just copied and pasted from our user guide. So you don't really need to know anything much about that. But if you maybe do want something more extra, you can do that as well. And you can see, there we go. So our pop-up window also has a new color. Okay, I think maybe it's time for our Q&A session. We can see that we already have some, so let's go ahead and maybe you want to pick the first one, Antonia.
Okay, well, let's start from the beginning. Is there a free version of GIS Cloud? No, GIS Cloud is a fully paid service. Our applications are subscription-based. There is a 2 weeks trial for testing everything out to make sure that we meet your needs and requirements. And after that, we have set up different subscription plans based on the solution you actually are looking for. Okay, on to the next ones.
Okay, this was done.
Okay, what features does GIS Cloud have in this project that you cannot do in any other GIS? I mean, that's a pretty complex question when you think about it, because there are a lot of other GIS solutions out there. So I would say the biggest benefit of GIS Cloud is definitely how fast it is in cloud, because if you use any other cloud solution, I think that the main struggle was to hold and obtain and maintain that heavy amount of data. We have our own map engine. We have a brilliant engineer behind it who actually is making sure that we are the fastest GIS solution out there. But for other features and tools, feel free to sign up and test it out for yourself. Okay, what about scaling, RTKs, GIS, and precision sub-inch mapping? Are there additional decimal values preserved? So when it comes to the precision of the data, GIS Cloud is, we can say, highly precise. We have the option of also, when using our mobile app, to pair up with external GPS units, which enhance the precision. We received feedback from our customers that they have like a centimeter precision on their data. So I would say that we are up for that challenge as well.
Exactly.
Will there be recording?
Yes.
Can we use the already developed MXD files or of ArcGIS in GIS Cloud, and can do the customization in it?
Well, no, so those would be file specific for ArcGIS, but if you have some idea of customization in mind, but aren't sure how to start or whether that's possible, you can always, let us know what your idea is, and we can see what the maybe simplest way to achieve that is and kind of guide you in the right direction. Or if this is not something that you want to really concern yourself with, we can also make this customization for you. So we just need to know exactly what you're trying to do. So maybe we can get in touch after the webinar and see what kind of what ideas you have for setting it up.
Is there any fee for creating custom apps, or can you create any number of custom apps as long as you have an editor license? So creation of custom apps really depends on the subscription you have. If you would like to have 10 versions of Map Editor, if you have one license, you will be able to install 10 editor licenses. Map Portal is also a subscription-based, meaning that if you would like to have a Map Portal interface, you would need to have at least one subscription to have one custom domain set up for it. So it's based on the subscription plans that you have. Please, can we have the recording? Yes, the recording will be available in a couple of days.
Can we add OGC-based remote services as layers? Yes, if you want, you can add web map service, web feature service. The great thing is that you can also create web map and web feature service from the data that you have in GIS Cloud. So you can see for each map, you basically get a web map and web feature service link. So that's a really cool tool, I think. So if you're working, with other GIS tools, be it desktop or web-based, you can always kind of have that integration with others as well.
Okay. what about hosting and domain configuration? Can we host the app to our domain?
Yeah, so by default, you're just creating this custom application on giscloud.com, but we can either just change the domain. So this first part is of course different. So it's not app and then app ID number. You can have it, whatever,
Your domain,
roadworks,
though, that's
yeah,
GIS-Cloud.com.
whatever. Or you can also set it up so that it's fully on your domain as well.
Of course, GIS Cloud domain is the one that we hold, so we can only install domains on our domain. But of course, if you have that kind of key that enables you to make that kind of redirection to your own domain, that's possible.
Can we save the output in any other GIS solution, for example, shapefile, etc.? Yeah, so you can export data from GIS Cloud in a couple of different formats. You can then use them in other GIS tools. You can also import data from other GIS software into GIS Cloud. So we're pretty, flexible. We like to say
extend and embrace.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, shapefile is fully supported in GIS Cloud. Is there a pricing for students? Well, yeah, we do like to support struggling students and nonprofit organizations. So if you would like to hear about different custom plans that we have set up for that, feel free to reach out. You mentioned white labeling the app, but the app still presents GIS Cloud in the background. What do you mean? You mean by the domain or with the powered by GIS Cloud in the small bottom corner of the map? Of course, white labeling comes to a specific place afterwards when we are removing full identity of GIS Cloud. That is also available, but it comes with a price because we are pretty much stripping out our product and replacing it with your own branding. So that's a little bit differently priced, let's say it like that.
Exactly. Okay, so when selecting an attribute on the map, can there be a pop-up with data about the attribute that is customizable to only show what I want them to see? Basically, can I make the pop-up more elegant than grid-like? Yes, definitely. So what I've shown you here is just a very simple changing of the colors, but there are ways that you can, of course, change what information is shown. That's very easily done through Map Editor. And you also have ways to fully customize this pop-up window. We actually have an excellent blog written by one of our developers, I think it was last month, about adding graphs into the pop-up panels. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at that. So you can find it on our blog. It's towards the top, I think.
Yeah, under the appearance in the map editor, you can just uncheck the fields that you don't want to show also in the pop-up. So it's really that easy.
Exactly.
Could a customized interactive map like the one you just demonstrated be easily linked to a different website portal like for an organization?
Yeah, you can definitely link, have a link on your website to point to here, or maybe you could also just embed the whole portal on your website,
or
exactly, or just also link from here to there. So, you can kind of have every way around.
Okay, can I overlay satellite images? Yeah, so you can add as many base maps as you like to. There is no limitation on that, so you can.
Yeah, and we do have Mapbox satellite available as one of the base maps, and also Bing. But if you have maybe your own web map service or tile map service, you can also add that as well.
Okay, what symbology formats can we import into the project? For icons?
Yeah, you can change the icons. You can also create different types of appearances, change for the lines, change the dashes, change the polygons with the hatches, things like that. I'm not sure what you were referring to with the symbology format. So maybe if you would like to, specify that.
Okay. Maybe like a file type or custom symbol, I don't know.
Yeah, any icon will work. If you're maybe referring to adding things like formatting files like QGIS has for when this symbology is set up. No, not currently, but it is something that we would be definitely interested in setting up.
Can we integrate the attribute with other sources, databases like Oracle or any other database? Yeah, so GIS Cloud supports connection to external databases like Oracle or PostGIS. So Oracle is read-only, PostGIS is editable.
Okay. Can we create APIs for the web maps to be embedded in our client's domain? Yeah, so we have APIs available as well. So if you'd like to do that and maybe just create your whole application through that as well, that's also a possibility. Okay, I see a lot of repeated questions.
Shout out to our cat Milan. He's sleeping in the sofa currently. Thanks for asking.
Okay, maybe one final question before we wrap up for today. Let's see, what about the load balancing and scaling the traffic? Do you have any limits for that? So there are certain view limits for our public map portal, but to be honest, I don't think any of our users have reached that. So I think like you're safe.
50,000 views per month, something like that.
Yeah, but the question is really how the views are calculated, and that's a bit more complex. But yeah, you're safe if you think that you might be kind of over that. You can let us know, but we would, always reach out and let you know, hey, you're kind of reaching the limit, and let you know what you can do to kind of set that up. But the limit is really not whether the site can handle it, it's just whether you will need to pay extra for that. Okay. I think we covered most of our questions. Definitely, if you have any more, you can always reach out to us to info@GIS Cloud. Yeah, we have it over here. info@giscloud.com, or just send us a message through our chat box on the website. We would love to hear what you thought about custom apps, whether you would like to maybe make your own. And if you would like to make your own and need some help, do let us know. We'd be happy to lend a hand.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining today. It's been great having you here, and see you on the next webinar.
Definitely. Looking forward to it. Take care, guys, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.